Kalispera, Aegean 600 race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis from Seahorse magazine, giving you the Thursday early evening report from our Aegean 600. We open with looking at the race course now and the status of boats that are still out there after 4 days of racing. It's been, as you might recall from yesterday's show, a tough race in many ways, not the least of which is the holes that were on the eastern side of the race course that were plaguing those that finished earlier today and those that we see still on the course now. So let's toggle the wind data and just show what that looks like. What's good news is that those that were stuck over here, over along the Turkish coast and doing the zigzagging on the islands up on that side of the course, they've that zone of blue that you remember yesterday, of very light air, has now dissipated. The Meltemi is kind of filled in from west to east, and they're getting more consistent wind now of let's say 12 to 16 knots. Much better than the picture we saw yesterday. Ironically, now the lighter air is over here on our side of the race course, which for the last few days has been blowing pretty hard. So the teams are enjoying finally some nice reaching conditions. They've broken free of the holes that are over here, and we'll have a nice night of sailing. Another interesting part of today's stories is just looking a little earlier here in the timeline, when the boats that were coming through, I'm looking at this, I'm going to zoom in here, looking at the teams that came through at dawn this morning at the gate at Mykonos. Here, these guys on the catamaran Picamoli, they were leading this pack. There's Patrizio Bertelli's beautiful classic-looking Sangramani. This is a 20 meter boat, quite beautiful. They were sailing along here at 8.8 knots, the catamaran about 12 knots, and doing just fine. Behind them is Swan 53 Bedouin, and a very interesting story because I got a chance to talk to Linda Goddard this afternoon, and she had a good story to tell on this that I wanted to share with you all. As they progressed into the gates here at Mykonos, I call that a gate because you've got to traverse that just like the gate at Santorini. And what happened was, as we see here, Ulysses fell into a hole, stopped completely. Picamoli did nearly the same thing. And what Linda told us was interesting. They could track what these teams were doing ahead of them by looking both on the YB tracker but also on AIS. Seeing that they'd stopped, they immediately diverted to a more northerly course to get through and around that hole where these guys were. You wouldn't have thought there would be a hole there because the prevailing breeze here was out of the north, and yet sometimes these holes are not just on the leeward side of these rocks and islands, but also the windward side. So they diverted immediately, kept their speed up, and went on around. The same thing happened for the teams that were behind them. I don't know what their imaging or their intel was like, but they did nearly the same thing. If we scroll forward and look where they went, they also had tracks that diverted around that hole that was ahead of them. So Linda attributed this to their experience from doing this race last year, where there were numerous holes in the course last year, but not nearly as many or not as deep, as she explained, as this year. But the lessons they learned from last year really helped them out. So I thought that was a good tale to tell. They ended up winning ORC Class 2 in corrected time, followed by one of the boats here, Antelope XP 44, sailed by a Greek team that's based further north in the country here, up in Thessaloniki. So I'm calling that island hopping. They did a lot of that in the last couple of days, and their experience from last year has really helped them out to claim that victory. There's still some crowns out here, so some positions up on the leaderboards and in the victory circles are still available. One here is a double-handed entry, Greek entry, 30-foot boat. Quite a small boat to go around this race course, but in this Daler 30, sailed double-handed. They are sticking with it, even in a small boat in tough conditions. So right now they're sitting in actually first place in the standings in both IRC and ORC double-handed class. So we wish the best of luck to all those that are still out here. They'll be arriving sometime tomorrow. And then the other thing we're seeing out here are just all the boats in gray that have dropped out of the race. They're coming out of their holes where they've been hiding for a few days now and heading back to the base here at Olympic Marine. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody arrive. So that's my story for today. Thank you all for tuning in. And we'll have one last final story as a summary probably tomorrow. So thanks again for your interest in AEGEAN 600. And for Seahorse Magazine, I'm Dobbs Davis.